Windass waits, and Johnson scores!
Musaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Casimir finds Musaba.
It's now Bannan. Bannan with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
Three contracts offered, 3 extensions triggered, 7 released, and 3 players going back to their parent club. Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Till I Die podcast. This special episode this Thursday evening, just hours after the returned list had been announced. What do you make to the list? Are you happy with those that have been given the contracts? What about the 7 that have been released? Any complaints from yourselves? Please do get in the comments and let us know what you think. We're live on X and on YouTube as well. It's not just me this evening. I'm also joined by Matt Johnson as well. First of all, Matt, how's things? All good?
Yeah, not too bad, James. I would have been a lot better had my Year 8 side not lost 6-0 to a side of Giants, but yeah, we move.
Well, that could be us next season, so maybe just getting yourself prepared.
I'm just getting myself prepared for the disappointment.
Yes, definitely. You probably saw a different setting for me. Yes, I am in the living room. Mrs. is doing a speed awareness course, so I've been kicked out of my normal setting. But no, we can't. I couldn't give this up. I couldn't say that we're not going to react to this. Just hours after it's come out, the eagerly awaited retained list. Of course, I can see these people already in the comments, not telling me that I'm on mute this evening, which is a good sign. Matt, you should have seen it. I looked over, and obviously, for context, the software that we use, there's the comments, and they've got a little notification bubble at the side of it. About 46. When I looked over, I thought, gee, this is great. The engagement is absolutely popping off. Only to realise that everyone's telling me that they can't hear me and I'm on mute. But anyway. There's one here. Look, make sure your sound is on today. Lol. John says, evening, John. Lamini Pie says, Windass hostage pick. Then Daniel said, actually happy with it. Windass will want a transfer now. Stannington says, evening. Yeah, get your comments in if you're watching on X or on YouTube as well. I'll just quickly whiz through the list then. Obviously, there's 13 players that was out of contract. The list is as it stands. Barry Bannan, Akin Famewo and Callum Paterson have all been offered new deals. Anthony Musaba, Michael Smith and Josh Windass, they've had their contracts extended. They all had clauses that we on our side that we could trigger them, so that's been done there. And those that have been released: Stuart Armstrong, Ben Hamer, Ryo Hatsuse, Michael Ihiekwe, Marvin Johnson, Pol Valentin and Mallik Wilks as well. Just on that list then, Matt, first of all, kind of any surprises for you, or is it kind of how you expected it to go, really?
I think it depends on what way you look at it, James. I think in the current guise of Sheffield Wednesday, under the current ownership, under, dare I say it, the current manager, it makes some sense. Because we are assuming that there's not going to be much of a budget in the summer. We were potentially assuming when these decisions would be made that there may have been a decision made on the manager. The 6 players that have been offered a contract make perfectly plausible sense from that perspective. And thinking of Sheffield Wednesday in the present day and kind of like reality right now. The other hand of it, James, and the other side of it for me is I'm looking at Bannan, Patterson, Michael Smith, Josh Windass here, all of which hold value, whether that be sentimental or actual genuine squad value. Every single one of them is over 30, bar Akin Famewo, who's got a long history of injuries at Sheffield Wednesday. I think it depends on what way that you would like to spin it. From my perspective anyway. In terms of this, I can understand why people are both happy and also annoyed at it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I look at those that have been released there, it's kind of, I kind of accept it, really. Mallik Wilks, well, he was out on loan, probably just to get him off the wage books. Pol Valentin, flattered to deceive, really. Marvin Johnson's, I'd probably his worst season in a Wednesday shirt. Michael Ihiekwe is just, he's done all right. He's fitted in, but you can't be sentimental all the time, can you? Really, you've got to kind of move on from these players. Ryo Hatsuse, a bit harsh on him. He's literally come for about 6 weeks. He's had a holiday over in Sheffield, which he pulled the short straw massively, picking Sheffield. Ben Hamer hasn't really played, but I thought he could have perhaps been a bit of a backup to Pearce if he's happy at being number 2. And Stuart Armstrong, again, he's had just a slightly longer holiday than Ryo, hasn't he? Really come back from Vancouver back to Sheffield, and I mean on that one probably when you look at the wages that he's reportedly on, I kind of get that, but the big surprise for me is Callum Paterson being offered a new deal. Now I will have to stress as well, Barry Bannan, Akin Famewo and Callum Paterson have only been offered a new deal. They haven't accepted it as of yet. We don't know if they're going to accept it or not, but they have just been offered a new deal. So it'd be interesting to see, whether I think Akin Famewo, unless it's a stupid offer that we've given him, because sometimes you do see clubs giving like a bit of a token offer to clubs, but to players. Sorry, but Akin Famewo for me probably would sign. The Patterson one, I don't know if he wants regular football, and I don't know. He would have probably wanted that in his contract that he wants to play. How are you going to get that assurance when you don't know who the gaffer's going to be? So that's going to be quite interesting, whether that one runs a little bit longer, Matt.
Yeah, no, I agree, James. I think with the Akin Famewo one, I would look at it from the perspective of, I still think he has something to prove at Sheffield Wednesday. In terms of his first season was obviously cut very short by injury and very disrupted. His second season, again, he had to bide his time. There was injuries, but he had to bide his time. A lot of the time, there was a very, very, there was a lot of centre-halves at the club at that point. Well, that feels a long time ago. But there was a lot of centre-halves at the club at the time, and he was having to bide his time and wait his time. And then when he did get back in, he'd get a knock or something like that. This season obviously started really, really well, looked very, very consistent. Arguably, had he kept all that form that he showed right at the start of the season all the way through the season, we may have been talking about a player who was in the running for a player of the season, really. Like, he was that good before the injury. I still feel he's got something to prove at Sheffield Wednesday, and I hope, again, as you say, that with the offering of a deal to both him, he has not been given a token offer, because there was reports of us making more of a gesture offer last year to people like Cameron Dawson, who obviously went and saw kind of pastures new. The Callum Paterson one for me is a strange one. On the one hand, again, I do understand the thinking behind it. It's very rare in modern football that you have a utility player like Callum Paterson who legitimately can play anywhere on the pitch, because I would even back him if, Pierce Charles gets injured and we haven't. Yeah, if Pierce Charles gets injured and we haven't got a substitute keeper, I'm backing him to come out and catch crosses. But he's the wrong side of 30, and the quality consistently is not there. And at Sheffield Wednesday, if you are looking to progress as a football club, that is the type of player who you thank very much for his service, because he has been here an awfully long time, and you move on from. Again, with the form that he finished the season in, and by form, I don't necessarily mean goal-scoring form. I mean in terms of like his output that he was putting into games and on the pitch. And obviously we've seen over the course of the season, we did our part 1 season review at the weekend, and we were talking about, when he came on at Derby and he completely, changed the game, that agent of chaos, he's really, really useful for. If I were in his shoes, I would be looking at it and thinking, right, I've got a contract offer and an extension here. However, I can take my family back up the road to Scotland, can probably get a 2 with an option, so 3-year deal at a club somewhere there where I will play guaranteed week in, week out for the first 2 years. That might seem more appealing to him than, say, for argument's sake, another year or 2 years here. I'm not sure is the honest answer. I personally wouldn't have re-signed him, or I wouldn't have been offering him a new deal. But again, I can understand the logic behind it.
Well, the thing is, 27 appearances, only 14 starts last season. All right, yes, he scored 6 goals. Similar with Michael Smith as well. He started 16 games. All right, came off the bench 25 times, 8 goals. It's funny actually how we were talking kind of, we're perhaps set to lose, the 13 goals of Windass, the 8 goals of Smith, the 6 goals of Paterson, and as it stands, well, Smith and Windass are definitely staying. Well, they've definitely got a contract until next season. Patterson might be staying. Looks like it's almost like we've looked at that and gone, shit, we can't replace those goals that we're set to lose. Matt kind of hits the nail on the head here. He says it smells of a club with no long-term plan. I suppose, we've just signed the players or tried to re-sign the players that have scored the goals, which I suppose, normally, yes, you would perhaps do that, but as you've rightly mentioned, we've got Patterson at the age of 30, Josh Windass the age of 31, and Michael Smith the age of 33. So they're not getting any younger. That's a bit of an aging strike force. That all right? Bailey Cadamartri should perhaps be coming in. He's obviously a lot younger. He can reduce that age somewhat. You've got Musaba and Gassama who are obviously younger as well out on the wings. But yeah, it is a bit of an aging, like I said, aging strike force there.
Yeah, it is, James. And I'm just going to use this quote here from Barry. Excuse me. Barry has said, if we just want to hang around this division, then we have the players in-house. But any aspirations, Barry's put with promotion, but I would argue any aspirations to finish either the same position or higher, then it's proven quality incomings that are required. I did pull up a fantastic tweet earlier on this matter, James. So just forgive me. I am just going to read verbatim. It's from David Nash. So it's at Bangers8, which is a great Twitter name. So from that retained list, he has suggested we are going to need 1 or 2 keepers, 2 left backs, 1 right back, 1 centre back, 2 centre midfielders, 1 or 2 wingers, 1 or 2 strikers. That's what you are looking at in terms of from the list that is underneath, and in terms of like the list of what we've been discussing here, realistically to make this a competitive squad next year in the Championship. I can't say any of it surprises me, but I can't say that I'm delighted or thrilled with the retained list, if that makes sense. Just because it's the same direction. It felt to me immediately when I saw the list of, oh, great, we're in a holding pattern for another year. There's no shift or clear shift towards another direction or changing this model to going towards more of a youth-focused setup. It just doesn't strike me as that with the players that we have in the building, that's all.
Yeah, it seems mad me saying this, but the only kind of area that I'm half happy with as a starting point is the back four, other than obviously a left back that we need now. Hatsuse and Johnson's gone, but Max Lowe could play there. So you've got Max Lowe, you've got Deshaun Bernard, you've got Akin Famewo, and then you've got Jan Valery, and then of course you've got Dom Iofa, and you've got the young lad Otubeyo, his name eluded me there. Do you know what I mean? You've got those. That for me is fairly solid. I do agree though. Perhaps do need another centre back and a left back. Potentially. Yeah, I know we've got Liam Palmer. We've got Callum Paterson if he signs his new contract that can slot in there. I'm all right with that. But yeah, there's not much depth though, is there really? At the moment, and we're asking to when you look at the players that have been released, it's not just players that have been released. It's also the loans that have gone back as well, your Beadle and your Charles. I mean, Cissoko, we're not really bothered about AMEs, but
two of those have played crucial roles, James. And if you look at that retained list, Stuart Armstrong, pivotal role over the last part of the season. Ben Hamer, okay, you can miss out. Ryo Hatsuse, squad player. Michael Ihiekwe, pivotal role from the end of the season. Not good enough, but pivotal role. Marvin Johnson, whatever people think of him, pivotal role over the last 3 years at Sheffield Wednesday. Pol Valentin, squad player. And I'm not saying that they are bad players or I'm not making a judgment on their character because ultimately they've been informed that they are out of a job today and that is the wrong time to do that. However, you now need to go and replace those. And we were all saying, this last year, this squad is lacking depth and you've just gutted a large portion of that depth there, and including the loan players who, up until 7 games left of the season, both of whom were week in, week out starters.
Yeah, I mean, just on the other one that's been offered a new contract, obviously Barry Bannan, it's a bit of a shoe in that one, isn't it, really? He's
I'd hope so, yeah.
Nailed on to sign a new deal. I hope it is a deal that's sufficient enough for him to sign. I'm sure he'll be, I'm sure they've got the news well before he jetted off to, is he off to Dubai? I think, is he on to Dubai? Somewhere like that. He's on to the Middle East somewhere, hasn't he? It looked certainly didn't look economy class. Certainly
No,
looked more.
good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, I think he's over there somewhere, but I'm sure he's enjoying himself. But yeah, that's got to be a shoo-in, and it really, he's more than likely will be signing another deal.
I would really, really hope so. And this isn't just because I want to keep him around for sentimental value. It's because he has yet again proved how pivotal he is to the success of this football team.
The other thing as well, we haven't got enough money to replace him, Matt.
No.
Literally, who's going to come in to really? We need to be bringing someone in now who's young, who's going to replace him next season. Do you know what I mean? He's going to be coming off the bench. He might get a few starts here and there, but we need to bring someone in the summer now, not to replace him now, but to replace him next year or
12 months, 24 months down the line. Yeah. I agree, James, 100%. He is not somebody who, under the current guise of what I suppose we're all expecting to happen in terms of the transfer budget for the summer, because we don't know what that budget is, but I think we can all fairly hazard a guess at what that's going to be. He's not going to be a player you can replace with just one. You are going to have to replace what Barry Bannan offers with a brand new midfield. And I'm not saying that Bannan does all of those jobs, but in the course of the 10 years that he is there, we have lent on him way too heavily. Bear in mind, this is a 35-year-old man, and we have asked him to play, 30-odd games this year, and we're going to ask that of him again next year, because currently in central midfield, we have him, Svante Ingelsson, and Nathaniel Chalobah. Sean Fasire as well, obviously, coming back from Carlisle, who's guaranteed to start next year because he's star boy. But you are looking at that and thinking you need 2 centre mids here, like realistically, because don't forget we're losing our player of the season in Shea Charles also.
Yeah, that's saying it. The only, when we look at like the lack of funds and things like that, the only kind of positive is that we could potentially bring players in on loan. But the other thing as well is obviously the manager's situation that's not certain either. I'd like to think that Shea Charles came to Sheffield Wednesday because of Danny Rayl and what he'd heard. James Beadle probably came to Sheffield Wednesday because of him as well, and obviously stayed because he enjoyed it. Brighton were happy with how things were going, but now that it looks like he's not going to be here, and the next manager that comes in, what players is he going to be able to attract in on loan? What style of football are we going to be playing? There's all these question marks. Again, I mentioned it on the debate show last night. We're going into the new season. We should be, any normal club should be thinking, we've got a solid foundation to build on. We survived last season. This season just gone. We've built on that. We've flirted with the playoffs, but there's all these question marks hanging over, and like I said, we don't know who the manager's going to be, and that also begs the question, Matt: who made these decisions?
Yeah, no, I agree, James. And as you say, just to go back over that point there, it's really interesting what perspective does, isn't it? Because were we trusting of the ownership and the running and the direction of the football club, we'd probably look at this and not bat an eyelid and go, do you know what? Kept the players we needed to keep, in terms of like players who have probably earned a new deal, release the players who didn't. We can look to the future. There's a good number of squad players there which we can build on from a solid foundation. Problem is, the outlook isn't so rosy at Sheffield Wednesday. And looking at that list, if I'm looking at Bannan, guaranteed starter, Akin Famewo, if fit, guaranteed starter, Callum Paterson was a guaranteed starter at the end of the season, Anthony Musaba, okay, you would still anticipate he is going to start games at the start of next season, because you would hope that is the season where he kicks on and develops. Michael Smith, in and out, squad player. Josh Windass, guaranteed starter. You're then looking at, okay, cool, we're basically running it back with the same team that we have done since League One, because actually from that League One season where we were promoted, we have released Michael Ihiekwe, Marvin Johnson. I know Mallik Wilks was in the squad, but he didn't really play. So actually we've still got a very strong spine of this is what our League One promotion was.
Yeah, you're right. The only saving grace, again, with the players that have gone, and the only thing that's kind of not worrying me too much is that the vast majority of them haven't played much at all this season. Stuart Armstrong came in January, like I mentioned, didn't hardly played, handful of games. Ryo Hatsuse, same again, didn't really start many. Ben Hamer, never saw him in a Wednesday shirt, didn't make one appearance. Do you know what as well? That Ben Hamer one is going to be, in 10 years' time, those trivia questions.
Yeah.
Or the do you remember this guy? Yeah, he remember the name, because he's going to be popping up on some quiz questions.
Sorry, James, just to cut in, because I know you're on a run here. It's just with Ben Hamer, he clearly came here expecting to play some football, because Danny's mentioned it a couple of times. He said, the season's not really panned out the way Ben would have wanted it to. He clearly came here expecting to get games. The fact that he hasn't even seen a cup game is mental. Absolutely mental. In the hindsight of things, I know Shea Charles needed those games early on in the season and obviously was right to take over the shirt at the end of it. But this was a player who had played near as makes no difference, a full season for Watford the year before. I'd be amazed if he doesn't pop up and play another 2-3 seasons of regular first team football somewhere.
Yeah, and like I said, didn't play once for us.
No.
Like I've already mentioned Ryo. Michael Ihiekwe is the only other one that has played more football. 20 starts he had last season. Marvin Johnson, he was I think 6th on the list in terms of appearances.
Yeah.
30 starts and 11 off the bench. Didn't really miss much,
Nope.
which is probably why he got as much criticism as he did, really, because it almost kind of reminds me of like Joey Pelupessy. Because he kept starting, because he kept getting played every week, he's there and you see him all the time. So it's someone that frustrates you. Same with Marv, because he's playing every week. And I don't think he expected, or I don't think Danny expected to play him as much. I think Max Lowe and Johnson was probably going to share a bit of the workload, and it probably showed, because at the back end of the season, I think he was just burnt out. I think it was forced into playing because we didn't have any other options, and clearly
100%.
Ryo wasn't good enough in Danny's eyes, and he felt like he had to stick with Marv.
Technically very gifted footballer, Ryo Hatsuse, not physically strong enough to cut up to speed with the Championship. But again, as we mentioned at the time, James, towards the back end of the season, that's down to the lack of options that we have, the lack of squad depth, and the lack of management of the player and easing him into the system. Ryo Hatsuse, realistically, should have seen the amount of games that he has, but in less pressure situations, and actually just been bedded in gradually. And then towards the end of the season gone, do you know what? You've probably got another year in you here because we've got a competent left back. We'll go out and sign another one and you can fight it out and duke it out. Because technically, from what I saw of him, I actually thought on the ball, competent footballer, clearly comfortable with the ball at his feet. We didn't see much of the deliveries. And I'm not arguing that he should have got a new deal in any way, shape or form. I don't think he's done enough. But my point is, at a really well-run club, or even a club with a plan and an identity moving forward, you recognise how much of a jump this player has made in making this step into the Championship, and you probably give him another year. Stuart Armstrong, I can understand. So I know I'm jumping back and forth here, James. The Stuart Armstrong one, I can understand. This feels like a favour for an old mate to me. This feels like, right, I need out of where I am. This move hasn't panned out. Danny obviously knows him very well. Come in and do a couple of months for us.
Yeah, I mentioned it last night. So I feel like it came around when Bannan had the mysterious foot injury, non-foot injury.
Yes.
He was going to be out for a season, which turned into a week. I think it was around about then, and I feel like he's come in to, and if it is only kind of a 6-month deal, it would make perfect sense if it is just to cover Barry Bannan. But then Stuart Armstrong gets injured himself, which is not really ideal, is it? And to be fair, I don't think I've seen enough of him to kind of, reserve any judgment on him.
Agreed.
If you know what I mean. The bits that we did see, he looked good. He looked calm and composed.
Mm-hmm.
The miss at Burnley still haunts me. Not going to lie.
It's a shocker.
It's a shocker. He's got to have put that one away. But then again, when you look at the wages he were on at Vancouver. And again, I mentioned this the other day. Like, even if he was on half of what he was on there, you couldn't get a couple of players for that sort of money. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, that is the only worry when I look at this list: Ben Hamer, Ryo, Ihiekwe, Johnson, Valentin, and Wilks. Like, I don't think we've saved much money there. In terms of wages. Marvin Johnson might have been on a decent amount. Michael Ihiekwe might have had some sort of wage increase, on promotion when he came
promotion
in,
bonus,
something like that. So he might be on a bit of a inflated wage, but the others were probably on, other than Armstrong, really, probably on peanuts in the grand scheme of things. So we're not. It's not like we've got rid of some big earners in order to then bring some decent players in, because that is the other thing. We're talking about not having any money. but obviously you can trim the wage budget. But then again, it comes down to, has he got enough money? He being Dejphon Chansiri, has he got enough money to keep that wage bill the same, or is that wage bill going to have to reduce somewhat, if you know what I mean, in order to keep it?
Sorry, James, I've just seen this comment from Monkey Tennis. I feel really sorry for the Japanese lad on Twitter who bought a Wednesday shirt because Ryo signed. I feel really sorry for him as well. Like, really sorry for him as well. Was it Liao?
Yeah. His scarf didn't turn up either. And then they sent him one out. I wish he'd probably thinking, nah, keep it, mate. Let's get a bit of a crowdfunder for him for... Actually, let's get in touch with Ryo and let's get him a signed one from.
Let's see if we
Ryo
can.
Himself.
Let's see if we can. Do you mind if we just move on to the options exercised, James?
Yes,
here.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm looking at this and thinking there's one which is a very interesting one, obviously, which is the elephant in the room, so to speak, or the hostage in the room, let's call it.
Yes. See what you did there.
See what I did there, yeah. And now it's gone. It's deleted. Anthony Musaba, that to me is a sensible renewal. In terms of
he fits the profile, doesn't it? That we keep
100%. He's had a stop-start season this year, and I think that's a bit of an understatement from how he finished the previous season. But I think everybody is aware that there is a player in there somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a player that pops up with good goal contributions at important times. Might drive you absolutely crazy in terms of just straight line running down to a byline and then tripping over his own feet, or trying to beat a player 6 times before squaring it, but does pop up with important moments and important goals. And as you said, James, age profile. There is a potential, if he starts next season really well, and we have a rosy outlook in terms of manager and all the rest of it, to tie him down to a longer term deal alongside Jeddy Gassama and say, run this back for another 18 months and then we'll sell you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his stats now. 3 goals, 6 assists, which in comparison to the one that we always compare him to, which is Jeddy Gassama, 7 goals and 1 assist. Now, you think, well, he's done better in terms of overall number. Gassama did that in 36 starts, 7 appearances off the bench. Anthony Musaba only started 12 games, so 17 off the bench, but still he did it in less. So he is that player. He's kind of very much like Josh Windass, and the eye test tells you that he's not really having a good game, but he pops up every time with some important, a goal or an assist in this case every time.
100%. And standing to just put it, he reminds me of Bashiru in terms of Deli Bashiru. Was very much towards the end of his time at Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't he? You were like, oh, there's a player there. There's a player in there somewhere. And look at what he's gone on to. Do I think at this point in time that Anthony Musaba will go on to have the same type of career that Deli Bashiru has had? No, I don't. Like, if I'm being completely honest. Do I think that the ceiling is similar in terms of the ability, the raw natural abilities and talents and skill set that the player has? Goal scoring, assists, pace, everything that you would look for in a young player, he has. To me, I look at that and think that is a very, very well done to whoever signed it, because I just don't believe Xisco Munoz signed him.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia just put Musaba look better than Gassama in their first few games. Yeah, I definitely agree. And then they were kind of flip-flopping, weren't they? They couldn't play together. Whenever they played together, it didn't really work. And then this season, I think Musaba finished last season fairly strong, and then the season just gone. Gassama looked much better, and obviously was playing a lot more as well. But then at the back end of the season, I thought Musaba did put in some decent shifts. So yeah, I do agree. Obviously, that's locked in. The 3, Musaba, Smith, and Windass, they are. Well, they might not play, they might not start, but they've certainly got a contract for next season anyway. The other one, we'll leave the other one, the final one we'll leave Windass till the last. But Michael Smith, now he did get wind of that kind of about a week ago that deal, we did have a year option on our side, and we have triggered that, and that's obviously been confirmed now. Again, it's one of those where this time last season, we were kind of thinking we need to get him gone, need to get rid. Don't think he's up to it for another season in the Championship. And he's kind of proved us all wrong, can he? Really, with his goal contributions and just his sheer number of goals that he scored. Nearly getting double figures when he only just barely got into double figures in terms of starts this season as well. Super sub, seemed to score every time he came off the bench. Or didn't really work for him when he started, but it's just the age for me. It's just
Correct.
the age, and I just want to be. I want to be signing younger players, and we can still do that. There is there's 7 players that we've released there. So you'd like to think we're going to bring another 7 in at least, plus these 3 that have gone back on loan. That's 10 players that effectively we need just to be status quo in terms of numbers for next season. They all could be under the age of 23. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's not kind of jump the gun a little bit, but we have signed someone who is over the age. He's 33 years old. Granted, he had a fairly decent season last season, but can he start that many games next season? Have we just signed someone just to be kind of bit part player again next season? I'm not too sure. And obviously, again, we don't know what the wage situation is going to be like. By all accounts, he's on a decent whack as well. There's nothing to say that the wages he's going to be on now is going to be the same. Not really sure how contracts work out, but I'm guessing this could be reduced terms. More than likely going to be the same. But yeah, what do you think to the whole Michael Smith stuff?
I think Michael Smith, it comes down to pretty much what you've said, James. Has he earned a new deal at Sheffield Wednesday? Yes, absolutely. He's done enough this season to warrant a new deal. He, as a bare minimum, runs his blood to water every single game. Now, he runs slow, but he runs his blood to water. He scored more goals than anybody anticipated in the role that he had at the start of the season and made himself an integral part of what was, up until Easter, believe it or not, a playoff push.
Yeah.
And has played a vital role this year. Do I think that we should be offering him a new deal? No, I don't. I don't think we should have triggered that extension. And that's a tough situation to be in because, as I say, he's well earned one. He really has. He's worked so hard this year. He's got important goals. He's been a great foil at times, especially over that December period for people like Josh Windass and Jamal Lowe. Because when he came on and played alongside either of them, those 2 players got significantly better. Do I still think he's limited at this level? Yes. Do I still think that pace isn't going to get any quicker? Yes. Do I think he still misses too many chances like at Plymouth? Yes. Is he another year older? Yes. And I think were the club in a better financial position off the pitch, this is a player who you don't exercise that option on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to scroll up and find the comment, but someone said as well, that this looks like it for the attacking options. Really, we might bring in a few more, but certainly when you look at Paterson, Windass going to come on to in a second, and Smith, he's almost looked and gone, right, they've got us those goals. We need those goals next season. So the easiest thing to do is just keep them. It's almost kind of like not having the belief in what's going to come next. That we're going to be able to bring in players that are better than that. Because you're right. Michael Smith, he could easily walk into any League One club. He's great in at that sort of level. He's scored 8 goals in the Championship this season before. Mm-hmm. He could easily maybe even a lower Championship club, which incidentally we could well be.
Or a newly promoted side. Like if you're a newly promoted side, just come up to this division. You sign him on a 2-year deal and don't even bat an eyelid.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wickham, was it Wickham, Charlton, or Leyton Orient? One of those 3 are going to be coming up.
And one of those players, and one of those clubs, he is perfect for that room and going into it. But it's the point here that Barry's made. We've got Kadamatri to score goals, maybe. The issue
that last word though.
Yeah, and it's also looking at that forward players room. If we're just looking at the forward players on the pitch, you've got Michael Smith, you've got Ike Ugbo, you've got Bailey Kadamatri, all fighting it out for one central striking position. That's before you go out and sign somebody else. You've then also had, over the course of this season, Josh Windass play there. In that position, alongside that front line, You also have Jenny Kasama, Olaf Kabatsky, Anthony Musaba. You need another space on that, or you need some rotation in the wider options because Sissoko's gone back. But behind Josh Windass, you also have
play out there maybe at times, but
Yeah.
not really as a winger. But I know
and
what
you
you're
have
saying.
Charlie McNeil, who we haven't seen enough of to know where he goes in that front line. But he appears to me, from what I've seen of him, to be the most natural air replacement to a like for Josh Windass as what you've got. It's a very crowded room. Because if you are either the current manager or potentially the new manager coming in, what did this squad need last year? This squad needed to take more chances. You are running it back with the same front line at this point in time. And Jamal Lowe as well, sorry. You are running it back with the same front line. That's what you are doing. You are saying these lot just had an off season.
And actually, if you look at that, I'll be surprised if we actually do bring in a striker next season.
It's a number of forwards, unless, and this is a big unless here with Michael Smith, you are extending him and still offering him up to other clubs.
Yeah. I was going to say that as well. Like, they could be, how many you've seen it with other clubs where there's that kind of gentleman's agreement that, I know in this situation they've got no option. We've just triggered it, and they signed the contract 2-3 years ago, whenever it was. So we've just got that clause in there that we've said to keep them. But you do see it from time to time where they'll be like, they sign a new deal, and then literally the day after they then go for some sort of fee. So there potentially is that sort of option. I know that was it a bid for 500 grand from Wrexham in January that we apparently turned down. So I don't know if they'll be coming in again with that sort of bid, not when they're spending £50,000 a week on the lad from Fulham. So that's maybe that ship sailed for Michael Smith, certainly for next season anyway. Go on then, the elephant in the room. Josh Windass. We all thought he would go in. His LinkedIn was fake, according to his mum. His dad let the cat out of the bag, and he definitely said that was going to be his last game at Hillsborough. Maybe his dad didn't know that there was that option to keep him for another year, and he's now staying. And then obviously the reason why we're all laughing is because of that Instagram post or story that was out for, I don't know how long it was. The screenshot says 24 seconds ago. I don't know when it was actually posted, but it disappeared as quickly as it went up. Saying it was the Billie Eilish song Hostage. Just no context whatsoever, just that song. But it's quite clear that his initial reaction is not great. Put it that way.
I'm not surprised. I'd be annoyed if I were him too. If I'm being perfectly honest, James, I'd be livid because effectively, whether the club have led him down the garden path, whether he's got there himself, I'm not entirely sure how we've come to this situation. But this is a player who didn't expect to be here. And I mean this very nicely because I don't think Josh Windass despises Sheffield Wednesday in any way, shape or form. Go back and listen to the interview that he gives post-Watford. He doesn't have any intention of being at this football club next year. Like, nicest will in the world. I think, again, we're reading into the semantics of things and the way people say things and all the rest of it. But I think when you read it, I don't think when you read into kind of those post-Watford comments, I think he saw that as a good way to sign off his Sheffield Wednesday career. You look at the way that he left the pitch at Watford. You look at the things that the club put out about him coming off the pitch at Watford. You listen to the commentators on the game on the day. If you go back and watch the highlights, this to me sounds like we have exercised an option because, again, we've realised that we can't replace this player. Or it looks at it as somebody who perhaps hasn't watched Sheffield Wednesday as closely as everybody in like kind of watching this and listening to this has done over the course of the season and doesn't really understand actually why we'd be letting the fourth highest goal scorer in this division go on a free.
That's the other thing. You don't have to just remove all emotion from it. And I feel like sometimes as a football fan, it's very difficult to do, but sometimes you have to. If you do remove that emotion and you just, look at his numbers, 13 goals and 5 assists. And the other thing, which has been his big Achilles heel, 44 appearances this season, 38 starts, and 6 off the bench. He's missed a couple of games this season, and that is it. So when you look at that, how many times I've said it, since he's been here, availability is your best ability. I keep saying it every time. I've not said it this season because he has been fit, and there's no surprise that he's scored the number of goals that he has scored in the Championship as well. So we're not talking League One. In the Championship, he's been mixing it with the big boys. Yes, he does frustrate a lot of people, and I go back to it again. If you're a hard worker, you kiss the badge and you do a salute and you do all these other things and you crunching tackles and run your blood to water. Don't matter how good you are, fans will absolutely love you. Mm-hmm. And they'll give you so much, wiggle room and leeway for a bad performance. The 1 minute you have any sort of ego and you seem to be looking like you're too big for the club or anything like that, people will come. Fans will take a disdain to that. Just look at Danny now. Danny's wanting to further his career. He's wanting to go to bigger and better things, but yet he's a snake and he's believing his own hype. And it's kind of the similar thing with Josh Windass. That's why people don't like him. But as I just said, if you take all that emotion away, why aren't we extending someone's contract who has scored 13 goals? And I think someone put a stat up, and there's only Borja Sainz who scored a bigger percentage of goals for their club in the whole of the Championship. So yeah, it just shows you how kind of important his goals are. And had we not had those goals from defensive midfield, then we'd have struggled.
I agree, James, and I think if you're looking at it purely from a data perspective, again, removing the emotion, this has been the first season that we have tailored the way that we play football to suit a style like Josh Windass, in terms of lots of balls on the floor, lots of crosses into the box, in terms of not up in the air, but actually lots of low deliveries into the box. He's had a lot of the ball in and around areas. If you're looking at that, again, that makes it all perfectly plausible for an argument of actually signing him. The reason why I wouldn't is twofold. One is because obviously clearly the player has made it fairly evident, like as evident as he can do, he doesn't see his future here. He saw his future elsewhere. And secondly is the age. Again, it's that over 30s player. We have somebody in the building who is currently being held back. Whether they're good enough or not in Charlie McNeil, nobody really knows because we haven't seen enough of him. But he's being held back now currently again for another year and being placed in a holding pattern where he's got to wait behind Josh Windass again for another time. And we're also stopping bringing somebody in who does what Josh Windass does, but he's of a younger age profile. He's, as Matt has absolutely fantastically and really eloquently put here, he is essentially irreplaceable to a club with no money. But a player who is unhappy can make a lot of trouble. Now, do I think that Josh Windass is the type of player who is going to walk into training and do what every 1990s footballer did when they were very angry and just start booting balls left, right and centre and ruining training sessions? No, I think he's too much of a consummate professional on the pitch to do so. In terms of, I think he trains exceptionally. I think a lot of managers have mentioned he trains exceptionally. He's a student of the game, etc. All those other cliches. But this is a player who saw his future elsewhere. This is a player who you have now only got 12 months on, because he will not re-sign here. He won't be here in 12 months' time. Whether we want him to be or not, we might offer him a deal. If I were Josh Windass and I'd been thinking, do you know what? I'm off at the end of the season. Thank you very much. I've had a wonderful time, blah, 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 blah. I would be sat here going, that's put another year on my move to America. That's stopping my family moving over and starting a new life on the other side of the world. That's what I would be. I know that's an incredibly selfish way to look at it, but that is a human being. It's a human being with aspirations of what he wants his career to go on to do. For me, I just look at it and just think personally, because again, once that Instagram story went up, it was then obviously quickly deleted, and then it's been replaced by a bloke holding a sign that says that's a very 2025 problem or something like that, about posting something, then realizing you've got to take it down straight away, and then all the rest of it, which is, again, I find quite funny. It is quite funny.
Yeah, he's quite outspoken, isn't he, Josh?
Yeah,
and does come out and kind of can be quite cryptic at times, but you can kind of read between the lines quite often. It's one here. David said Windass needs to be having a word with his agent. Must have known what he was signing last summer. Knowing this could have happened. I suppose as well, though. the Danny situation doesn't help, does it? Josh came out and said that Danny Röhl is one of the best managers that he's worked under, if not the best manager that he's worked under in terms of the things that he's been getting him doing. He's obviously had a great season under him as well. He's played him every single week, so you know, if he's got a nice little appearance bonus, he'll be absolutely raking it in. Certainly like this season just gone. And if he's not going to be here, then it's that uncertainty again as well. Like you don't know. You literally don't know who the gaffer's going to be. You probably, we're presuming it isn't going to be Danny Röhl. But then you look back and thinking, I bet they're thinking, I hope it ain't a fucking another Cisco. I hope it's not another Jos Lukai. Do you know what I mean? Because those play, certainly Barry Bannan anyway, and Liam Palmer that's there, they can go back to those times and be like, look, this chairman signed some absolute stinkers. We're hoping that it's not one of those. They're probably hoping that he's a Darren Moore type person or a Danny Röhl. So there's all that goes into it as well. You mentioned it on Smith. Do you think there's an opportunity to sell Josh Windass? Do you think we could get some sort of fee for him? And if someone was to come in with a fee, because if you're looking. I'm sure his agent will be throwing his name around, saying, this guy's not happy at his current club. He'll sign pretty much anywhere.
Honest answer is I don't know about a European market, I suppose. I think if you're a European market, and I would say a UK market, not necessarily Las Palmas in Spain, congratulations, Ollie McBurney. If I were looking at a UK market, I'd be looking at it and going, do you know what? I'd have 100% had him on a free. I'm not paying because he's only got 12 months left on his deal. I don't see the value of it. He's 31. Were he 26 and we'd exercise this option, 100% you pay it. But he's not. He's 31. Do I think that'll put people off in America? I'm not so sure. I don't know enough about MLS, I suppose, to actually see whether that would warrant somebody being put off by, I don't know, a relatively nominal fee of £1.52 million for a marquee signing or one of your, like your big signings that you have there. I'm not entirely sure. What I can guarantee is that I think this time next year it will have gone one of two ways with Josh Windass. He will either be so happy here in the next 6 months that he decides to see out the rest of his years here, or in 6 months' time, he will be going and touting himself. He'll sign a pre-contract somewhere. Would be what I would suggest.
This one is agree with what you're saying, Matt, but why did he sign the contract in the first place? Just on that, again, I can't verify it, but from what I've been told, the whole situation with Danny told him not to sign a contract. I'm going to take you with where I'm going. This was last summer. Obviously the Josh Windass contract rumbled on and on and on, and then. Obviously, Danny then signed a new contract and then told Josh Windass to sign it, even though he told him it was a bit of a disrespectful offer. So, and again, if you look online, again, you can't verify this, but if you look online, it would make sense given the contract value that Josh Windass has versus some of the other players at the club who have performed considerably less than what Josh has. So, and again, you don't know what this extension is, whether it is just on exactly the same terms in which he'll be looking, thinking these other guys here that are getting paid a lot more than me, and then again, if you look, Ihiekwe is reportedly on $5,000 a week more than what Josh Windass is. He scored no goals last season, and Windass scored 13. So just when you look, I know that is football, and that it's not like working in a normal job.
Yeah, football, you pays your money, you takes your chances, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And, but still, you're going to look at that and think it's a bit, you can see why someone would be annoyed and frustrated as well, 100%. Given the circumstances.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Just to frame this with a positive spin, James, because we've been very, very negative about like the manager situation and the ownership, because why wouldn't you be, because of the news that's out there?
Yeah.
But just to put this in a positive light, you spoke about it, I think it was on the debate show yesterday, there's been reported interest that actually the Southampton job isn't as sewn up as we all probably assumed it to be with regards to, and probably Danny thought it was going to be as well, in terms of the manager shortlist at Southampton has supposedly, and again, you're going off news articles, but those news articles have been verified because the news outlet that put it out also has the verifier and fact-checked by the person underneath. It's down to a two-person shortlist, one being Gary O'Neill, one being Danny Röhl. One of them is currently an out-of-work manager who you're going to have to pay a very little or nominal fee to, I think, is it Wolves who have placed him on whatever it is, and then if he gets gainful employment, they just stop paying him.
Yeah.
Unless he's taken like a settlement, but I suppose you'll never know that, will you? If you're looking at it from a transfer budget perspective, you go to Gary O'Neill over Danny Röhl because you know you're not going to have to shell out in wages and a transfer fee. You just know that you're going to have to shell out in wages. There's more experience there. There's Premier League experience there as well. Then if you're, I suppose, Danny and nobody else comes and takes you, what do you do now? Like if you're him, because actually looking at that release players, and if again, I'm trying to spin it in a positive light, you've actually got rid of a lot of the dead wood there. And I don't mean to be horrible with those players, but that is effectively what they're squad players or players who are past the age of 30. So you've kind of got your wish in terms of...
Nobody's really that angry about the players that have been released. There's no kind of Massimo Luongo in there that everyone's like, whoa, what's happened here? You know, they're all... You can kind of accept it all, really.
Yeah. Like you would look at it and I suppose you would go, okay. Now, I'm presuming here there's not going to be much of a transfer budget, but let's say you manage to get a transfer budget under, say 3 million, the same as it was last year for Ike Ugbo. But you convince somebody to sell a player with a year left on his deal and make a good profit, namely Jedi Gassama. You then have that wiggle room and transfer budget to be able to do something. And you hold out for a year, knowing that in a year's time, Michael Smith is out, Anthony Musaba is out, Josh Windass is out, likelihood Barry Bannan is out, likelihood Callum Paterson is out. And then where's the squad at? Because ultimately, what you're doing, in my opinion here, if that is the scenario, what I think the chairman is gambling on here is he's kicking the can down the road again for another 12 months. In my personal opinion, I think that's what he is banking on, is kicking the can down the road for 12 months, getting rid of the deadwood, keeping the players who you sort of have either earned a new deal or you think need to be around the squad. And you're betting on the fact that the manager comes back, because at this point in time, the club holds the cards in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good one. I mean, the way that the fans have reacted, again, I know the social media is only a small part of the fan base. Not everyone is on social media, not everyone sees it, and also not everyone agrees with everything that everyone's been saying as well. You know, there isn't 40,000 comments saying that Danny Röhl is a snake, as much as it feels like it's everyone. It isn't everyone, but it is an interesting one to see, given what he has said. And I do feel like it has been blown well out of proportion with the reaction of certain people. Is it a little disrespectful? Probably. Same with with the Josh Windass thing, seeing comments saying, if you don't want to play for us, fine, go then, we don't want you, and stuff like that. And people feel quite passionate about the whole respect thing, and I get that. It's but at the end of the day, it is a business. It is dog eat dog out there. They're all looking at the as much as it's a team game, everyone is looking out for themselves. So we're in a tricky situation that very rarely have we had players that are kind of have gone on to do better things, having left Sheffield Wednesday or wanted to leave. Normally they end up finishing the career at Sheffield Wednesday, or they're not good enough and drop down the leagues. There isn't many that have gone on to, Michael Antonio is probably the last one that kind of did that, really. I'm sure there's probably others since, but certainly none that kind of. There's not many that have gone on to play in the Prem, put it that way, from leaving us. So you say, we're not used to it. Same with the manager situation. We're not used to a manager wanting to leave by his own accord. It's normally the performances are shit, you're sacked. We want you out, and it's like a celebration when someone leaves. So again, that situation is all strange. Finally, then to wrap things up, then Matt, and I've kind of put it out for everyone in the comments. Give me your out of 10 rating. So get in the comments, everyone, if you're watching on YouTube or on X, what would you rate the retained list? Given the 13 players that were out of contract this summer, we've chosen to offer a new contract to Barry Bannan, Akin Famewo and Callum Paterson. We've exercised the option to retain Anthony Musaba, Michael Smith and Josh Windass, and we've released Stuart Armstrong, Ben Hamer, Ryo Hatsuse, Michael Ihiekwe, Marvin Johnson, Pol Valentin and Mallik Wilks, and of course, obviously Shea Charles, James Beadle and Ibrahim Cissoko have all gone back to their parents' clubs. So yeah, what rating out of 10 would you give it, Matt?
I think, again, it is, again, as you say, James, I just want to stress this, contextualising it with the players who are on that list.
Yeah, because we can't do anything about the players that are still a Liam Palmer or a Dom Iorfa, because they're still here. So,
I think it's an 8 personally. Do I agree that Michael Smith should have been offered a deal? No. Do I think Callum Paterson should have been offered a deal? No. But it's age profiles, not because of the quality of player. Aside from that, I can't criticise it. Like, we've offered contracts to the people who we should be offering. And from a selfish perspective as a football club, and it is a selfish perspective as a football club, we've kept hold of Anthony Musaba and Josh Windass.
Yeah, I would have said probably a 7 or an 8, probably for the reasons that you've said. Mainly because I probably go as far as saying an 8 like you did, because I read it and there was no kind of emotion there. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't
correct.
I wasn't thrilled when I looked at it. I wasn't, but also similarly, I wasn't annoyed either. I just looked at it and thought, all right, yeah, I kind of understand that. Obviously, yeah, the Josh Windass thing, when you're thinking, when it was revealed that he had an option to extend it, but you thought, wait a minute, the way he's acting, I've probably thought we're not going to extend it, and they've had an agreement, and he's just going to go. Obviously, we got wind of this Michael Smith one a couple of weeks ago, last week, so kind of saw that one coming. It was probably the Patterson one, giving him a new deal. That was probably the only one that I looked and thought I didn't really expect that, as you just mentioned. So yeah, I would probably go with a probably an 8. I mean, Joseph said he's giving it a 6. Tom, 5 out of 10. Gary's gone with a 7. 8 out of 10 for Paul. Daz has gone with a 5. 8 out of 10 for Dave. There's a 7 from John, a 7 from Barry, a 7 from Robert as well. So yeah, kind of all much of a muchness, really. All just kind of a bit of a accepted. I think.
Again, as I say, James, and I just wanted to stress this because I know we're obviously trying to wrap it up. Is it what I would have done? No, I would be wanting to change the direction of the football club in terms of I would have been releasing Callum Paterson, Michael Smith and Josh Windass because of the age profile, not because of the quality of players. Because it's the lack of the long-term plan. It's the lack of the planning towards the future. It's the lack of the recognising that this hasn't been working and moving towards a new direction for the football club and for Sheffield Wednesday. It's recognising what you have done as an owner to put us in this position. It is putting us into a holding pattern with all of the context of that situation. This is where I kind of sit with it. Would I have done this? No, absolutely not. But do I think that this is the smart, sound decision to have made if you are going to continue to run the football club in the manner that you have, which, strap in people, he is, because this list tells you that this is the only logical decisions that you could have come to.
Yeah, just read a few more comments before we do wrap up. James has said, Loanees, we're always going to go back, but I think all in all, it's as I thought it would be, and I'd go for an 8. No shocks or surprises, really. Barry said the manager situation is the stumbling block, in my opinion. Matt said it's the lack of long-term plan that sours it for me. I fully understand why they made decisions they did, though. Brendan said, shame the chairman wasn't on the release list. Yep, agreed on that. And Tom said, yeah, it's duct taping holes on the leaks on the boats. Yep, definitely. Yeah. And then Barry just asked, has the manager created this list? We'll never know.
It's a great question. It's a great question, Barry.
Do you know what? I think we're going to wrap things up. I think that's something for extra time on Sunday. Obviously, on Sunday, we are going to be doing part 2 of the season review, starting with Preston. Was it Preston in between Christmas and New Year? It was, weren't it?
Yep.
It definitely was, yeah. And then there's Derby on New Year. And then it kind of goes a little bit downhill after that.
Yeah.
There's still lots for us to discuss, probably more off the pitch things that happened and revisiting. So do join us on Sunday at 8 o'clock, the normal time, when you can listen to myself and Matt again. I hope you've enjoyed this evening, this special hour-long episode. Obviously, we've reacting to the returned list. Do keep all your comments coming in, of course. We'll try and read as many after. But yeah, join us again on Sunday at